Hello. It's Prof. Shees, and I'm here to talk about introductions, conclusions, and titles, sort of wrapping up that research paper. First, I want us to review literature reviews, because an introduction is the brief section before you start discussing your literature. So if we remember, a lit review synthesizes sources, sort of like if we were creating a seating arrangement at a party or organizing lunch tables for cliques at a high school. In this way, we're thinking about how sources connect and what function they serve together. Again, your introduction occurs right before that section. So the purpose of your introduction is to introduce you and how you sit amongst those sources you're about to present in an organized way. So you'll need to think about, okay, I have all these tables. Where do I sit? How do I fit in? How do I stand out? What am I adding to all these tables or to this party? What role am I fulfilling? Or what are people saying about me? Or why would they be interested in me? When you develop those ideas about yourself, about your own field research, you will take the introduction then to explain that, to seat yourself, and then sort of build the rest of the situation around you. So I have some examples, one of my own research and then one I made up. So if you remember from the quiz, we looked at my TikTok paper, which is about how we censor taboo words online. And I found a source from Moreno who talked about censorship on Instagram and how it's funky in linguistic ways. I found an article from Burge who talked about why we censor. It's for social purposes like humor and respect. And so I have these two tables already sitting there. Where am I going to fit in? And so I think about it and I realize I like what Moreno and Burge are saying. I see value in that. So I want to acknowledge that, hey, you two are right. But something I notice is you're not really combining those ideas. So let's overlap those things and focus on why teens censor things online. So in this way, I know I'm going to present Moreno and Burge later, but I'm going to take my introduction to say, here's what I notice and what I want to do. Here's another random example. We got Fredrickson who says, students procrastinate because they're anxious. And then I read Holmes who says, no, they procrastinate because they're lazy and dumb. So again, I have two sources, two tables I know I'm going to set up. Am I going to sit with Fredrickson, or am I going to sit with Holmes, or am I in the middle? Are we all together? What am I going to do? So looking at these fake sources, I was like, I completely disagree with Holmes. I don't think students are lazy or dumb. I definitely agree with Fredrickson. So I'm going to take my introduction to assert, hey, Holmes, shut up, you're wrong. I am taking this stance. I'm so with Fredrickson, and not just that. I think it's worth investigating that concept in an English class specifically. So again, I've put myself into the conversation. I've asserted what I'm going to accomplish. So this is just an abstract thought or goal. There's an actual structure or method you could follow that would make this more easier. Oh, I skipped it. It's called CARS, named after, I think, someone with the last name CARS. But there are 3 steps to accomplishing that goal. The first step is called establishing territory, where you sort of summarize the big ideas from your sources. You can cite, you don't have to cite, you can be kind of general about the ideas, but the idea is you're setting the stage, sort of like, this is my wedding party, or this is the cafeteria at so-and-so high school. For research, you could say things like, recent studies have focused on X, Y, and Z. And of those, Y has been a major issue of focus. So introducing your topic in a way and kind of what's hot about it or important. So establish the territory. Then you're going to narrow down and find your niche. So this is where you start facilitating where you're going to fit in. So what's missing? What are those studies not talking about? Or what hasn't been researched yet? Or what's lacking? So territory, hey, we're talking about this. Niche is previous studies haven't considered a certain variable, certain aspect, implication, impact factor, something like that. So once you've kind of established like there's an open seat somewhere in this conversation, you do step 3, which is occupy that space or that niche. So have this topic, you found this problem, your field research, your study, your interview, survey, whatever you're conducting is going to satisfy that seat that's open. So the findings of your study will accomplish this, or findings of your study will investigate some sort of factor. So in these 3 steps, you are, again, seating yourself amongst your sources. You want to start with that so that your reader, again, like builds the world around you and knows that like you're most important right now. Even if you don't feel like it, you are important. So you want to seat yourself first with the CARS method. So this slide is an example of the CARS method. So you can pause. I think it's on Canvas and Files. I put everything there. But you can look and see how they establish the territory, establish a problem, and narrow it even further. I think in this example, they talk about music and stress. Then they talk about, well, we aren't talking about college kids. Hey, we did an interview series to see how college kids are impacted. Does that transition make sense? I hope so. So that's the introduction. It's the first impression, so that's why we have a lot of structure to it. There's less structure with the conclusion. But to write a good conclusion, you would focus on something called the so what factor. So you'd first address limitations, so biases or errors in your paper, implications, how this paper should be used. But then you end on a synthesis of findings with a focus on the future. So what or now what are those guiding questions? You might have wanted that conclusion as a summary. We don't need a summary. We're smart academics. And if you were using meta-commentary, we were following along just fine. So instead, I'm going to end your paper thinking, okay, so what? Like, why should I care? What should I do now? Or why is this so important to me? So that's the goal of the conclusion, to establish the next step. Like after your audience reads this paper, what should they do next? So some ideas to explore would be comparing what you found versus what is commonly thought, what you found versus what your hypothesis was, what you found versus what the future has in store, and then what you found versus what could have been found or what still needs to happen. That's why a lot of papers usually end on like, in the future I'm going to do more research, or additional research is needed to fully explain this issue. So as you write your conclusion, I know you're going to be tired, but try and think about what you want your reader to take away for the future, what you're hoping they implement or do or think about after they finish your paper. The last thing to wrap this up is a title. So titles are typically very academic and kind of dry. They're like wordy and clunky. It's kind of sad, but titles are also a space for fun. So sometimes academics have personalities and humor, and they reveal that in their title. A basic title, though, should include your topic, whatever variable or factor you're considering, your method. So they typically say like case study, interview, survey. So the reader knows right away what kind of information you're dealing with. And then, this is kind of strange, but titles typically say the result or the conclusion of your paper. And the idea being that, again, it's very clear and transparent for the reader. They know right away what they're getting into and if they want to read your paper. To convey all this information, titles usually have a colon, and that's why they're so lengthy. As I mentioned, though, titles can be fun. Some academics use puns to make their paper more engaging. So in this QR code or that link, you can see some examples of titles that use puns. I encourage you can go for that. You can make your title a meme. I'll laugh at it. Here are some examples I've done. So I had a paper called Love in the Time of Coca. Coca is a technical database for linguistics, but Love in the Time of Coca sounds a lot like Love in the Time of Cholera, which is a famous book. I also have Thinking Outside of the Box for a book about, or paper about comic books. So box, comics, they're made of boxes. I'm so funny. And the last one, Do It Yourself, Duolingo User Vocab Strategy. Duolingo is an app that you use yourself, so I did Do It Yourself. So yeah, you're welcome to use plays on words, puns, reference memes, have fun with that. You don't have to do something super academic if you don't want to. So again, this was introductions, conclusions, and titles that wrap up your paper. The most structure is probably in the introduction and what you would invest more time in, but the conclusion still has a function, that future orientation. So good luck.